3 of Slasher is not very good. See, while I was definitely teasing the past 2 seasons of this show in the last video, I do want to reiterate that I had a lot of fun watching it, and I think they did a pretty good job overall. So why is this season so much worse than the previous 2? What exactly changed? Oh, I'm gonna tell you, mother trucker, because it's a pretty long list. Also, I'm gonna be spoiling all 3 seasons throughout the entire video, so there's your warning. So I'm gonna start this video by talking about the story and burritos. You see, the first 2 seasons have some pretty clear inspirations. Season 1 is very reminiscent of movies like Halloween and Scream, and Season 2 feels very I Know What You Did Last Summer. So what exactly is Season 3 drawing inspiration from? That's a very good question. I honestly have no idea. So the plot of this season revolves around these people who live in this apartment building where a murder took place a year ago during something called the summer solstice. What is the summer solstice, you ask? Well, I guess it's small town Coachella. The killer is known as the Druid, and on the year anniversary of the murders, they start happening again. And yes, you might be thinking that this is basically the plot of Season 1, and I don't have an issue with them going back to a format similar to Season 1. I like Season 1. But the plot of this season sort of feels like an overstuffed burrito.
Boy, he's got his free taco.
You see, I believe that the burrito is the perfect amalgamation of food, a superfood, if you will, but that doesn't mean that all burritos are created equally, no. You see, when crafting a burrito, it may be tempting to take every tasty ingredient you can think of and pack it into that son bitch. And sometimes that works, but often what happens is you're left with this heaping mess of veggies and meats and sauces just rupturing your burrito, and now you have to eat it with a fork, and fuck that shit. I will die before I eat a burrito with a fork. I'm an American. Like, a lot of this show focuses on weird love triangles and useless flashbacks and just a lot of characters you don't care about having sex with each other. And once you get to the finale, when you look back on all of it and you really think about it, none of it really affected the plot in any meaningful way.
Are you fucking kidding me?
So, in Season 1, it's pretty clear that the murderer is someone who is close to our main character and has an axe to grind with people in the town who have shady pasts. In Season 2, it's also made very clear that these people are being killed because they are responsible for the murder that happens in the opening scene. In this season, we're shown a murder of this horny guy, no pun intended.
Please make me look horny.
And then we jump a year later and the murders start happening again, but you don't really understand why. The motive for the first murder seems like it's sorta just cause this guy was a douchebag, but I don't know what any of these other murders have to do with it until the very end. So the scenes where people are getting murdered don't have the same kind of effect because I, the audience, don't have any kind of connection to these characters or any clue as to what the killer's motives might be, and oh shit, my burrito was falling apart.
Put all kind of burritos in your ass.
I think that when you're telling a story like this, an important detail to consider is the setting. And this season chooses to make the primary setting an apartment building. And based on my experiences living in apartments for a majority of my adult life, I can tell you that this is not #relatable. People who live in an apartment building do not interact with each other this often, especially if they already don't like each other.
Watch where you're going, you piece of shit.
Like, it makes sense that these 2 characters would be hanging out all the time because they go to the same school and they're friends, but everyone else, like, despises each other, even though they're always just hanging out in the hallways talking to each other. Don't you guys have jobs or something? Go somewhere else. So the next big issue, which I mentioned earlier, is the flashbacks. And yes, there are plenty of flashbacks in both of the other seasons, but they never got in the way of the story. In Season 1, all of the flashbacks happen like 20 or more years ago, and the flashbacks in Season 2 all take place in different seasons, so it's never confusing. With this season, the flashbacks are presented in a way that makes the whole narrative really hard to follow. All the flashbacks happen within this apartment building, or at least with the characters who live in the building, which would be fine if we just stuck with a specific time period. But no, we keep flipping all over the place. 1 year ago, 10 months ago, 9 months ago, flashbacks within flashbacks. Do you see the problem here? Did I buy a ticket to Tenet? Stop with this shit, my head is gonna explode. Like in the last season, they show you the counselors murdering this girl in the opening scene, and then the flashbacks are used to add context as to what led to this incident, which is a pretty big part of the story. This season uses flashbacks mainly to show the relationships that the characters had with Horny Guy before he was murdered. But by the end of the show, you realize that this guy didn't really even matter that much.
It doesn't matter what your name is!
Now, all the stuff I've been bitching about could probably be forgiven if it weren't for this final thing, which is the characters. So since a lot of these characters end up being pretty useless, I'm going to divide them into a couple different groups. The first group being Dumb Love Triangle 1. Dumb Love Triangle 1 includes Angel, Joe, and the most annoying character in all of TV.
Leave Violet alone! Leave Brittany alone!
So their whole deal is that Joe is dating Annoying Lady, but he's secretly a closeted gay man and is having an affair with Joe. Joe decides that he's fed up with his lies and leaks a video of them doing it online. But Annoying Lady doesn't really care because she's focused on becoming an influencer and saying stupid shit like this.
But my followers, they want the down low, and that is why I'm out there on the streets, right? I'm collecting facts for them. The good, the bad, and the fugly. I'm sorry, are you a fucking moron?
So how does this story connect to the overarching slasher narrative? Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter!
The only thing I can think of is that this guy used to have a little thing for Horny Guy, but it doesn't really matter because it turns out that basically every character in this show also had a thing for Horny Guy. This brings us to our next group, Dumb Love Triangle 2. Dumb Love Triangle 2 consists of Horny Guy, a character I will refer to as Gamer Girl, and our dumbass counselor from the last season who only exists to have a dumb mustache and say creepy shit to underage girls.
Honey, if I wanted to see those puppies, I could just watch you sunbathing in the courtyard for free.
Why don't you make yourself at home here?
So what's the deal with Gamer Girl? Well, apparently she was traumatized by a car accident that killed her parents, and she is now obsessed with video games and VR, to the extent that she only wants to have sex if she's wearing a VR headset. Okay, I'm sorry, it's getting a little bit silly, but Horny Guy comes in and uses his powers of horniness to get her to be able to experience something real for once. Oh, that's so sweet and heartfelt, and then she gets murdered horrifically while we flash back to her as a baby crying, watching her parents die. Wow, that's so morbid. Are we having fun yet? Are we having fun yet, Slasher Season 3? So these two love triangles get a lot of screen time in this season, and if you're wondering, hey, isn't this show supposed to be about a guy in a mask killing people? I don't know, because that's what I thought it was supposed to be too. These next two characters are going to be referred to as our dumbass detectives, because this is some of the worst police work I have ever seen on a TV show. Throughout this entire season, they cannot solve a single crime that is being committed. This show just really wanted to add a true detective narrative to this season so bad, but I don't know why. Season 1 didn't really put a lot of emphasis on the actual investigation, and Season 2 doesn't even have any cops in it. The whole time these cops are so behind on what we, as the viewers, already know has happened. So this begs the question of why these cops are even part of the story at all. This girl, who is referred to as the slutty character, is killed in the first episode, and the killer just shoved her body up in the ceiling of a high school bathroom during the school day. And the cops didn't find her until the end of the 5th episode. That actually brings up another problem, which is that all of these murders are committed in ways that would make you think that it wouldn't be very hard to catch this guy. This guy gets his head chopped off in the morning at his car right outside of his house, and the killer takes the time to turn his head into a fucking hood ornament. In the previous season, a majority of the murders took place in isolated locations. I mean, shit, the entirety of Season 2 was in the middle of nowhere. And this makes the story actually kind of believable, but in this season, almost all of the kills are happening in public places, and these dumbass cops still can't figure out who's doing it. 2 people are killed in a high school during school hours, 1 guy is killed in his coffee shop while it's still open in the middle of the day, and then the rest of the kills happen in this apartment building, where people live. Again, how are you two not getting anywhere? You're telling me that there's no evidence, witnesses, anything?
Who the fuck is hiring you morons?
And I'm not kidding. The moment these cops actually get anywhere near discovering the truth of the druid, that he just kills them. So what was the point of any of this? So the next batch of characters I'll be talking about are Connor, Jen, and Sadia, and their parents to some degree. Sadia is kind of framed as the main character of the story, and you might be thinking, isn't it a bit weird that I'm just mentioning her now? But don't worry, let me explain. Sadia is a girl who just so happens to be a part of a Muslim family, which is a really good idea. I mean, how many shows actually have a Muslim protagonist that you can root for? I can't think of any. So I thought that this could really go places and offer some cool insights into what that's like. Unfortunately, the show never really goes deeper than, hey guys, turns out people can be racist and Islamophobic.
Okay.
Also, this is a bit nitpicky, but her parents are shown in the beginning of the season, and then they just disappear for the remainder of the show. If they had stuck around, it would have been a good opportunity to show how family life of Muslim immigrants really is like, but no, that wouldn't be sexy enough. We had to keep going to flashbacks of this guy getting his dick sucked in the hallway of an apartment building.
There are children living in this building.
They gotta learn somehow.
Your apartment is right over there.
Some things just can't wait.
Lady, call your fucking landlord. What is wrong with you? So the main issue with framing Nadia as the main character is that we don't really know that much about her. The only thing that this show tells us is that she has a crush on Connor, and she can't find her phone.
Give how my section feel, and this Molly might make me a vegetable, girl.
Not that high, am I?
Not that high, am I? Not that high.
And this is where we're going to get into the heaviest of spoilers. I'm serious, this is some heavy shit. I'm gonna spoil the end of this season, the end of last season, and the end of the first season, so get the fuck out if you haven't seen that shit. So in season 1, Cop Guy is the killer, which I thought was cool, because I honestly didn't see it coming, but I'm kind of dumb, so maybe it's a bit more obvious. In season 2, at first, you think it's this guy doing it all, because he was the guy who ended up taking the fall for the original murder. In reality, he's actually dead, and it's just been a projection of this lady who is actually his mother, and she's been behind the murders the whole time, and your mind is totally fucking blown. Now, for season 3, they dumb it down just a little bit.
I'm the fucking druid. That name sucks.
So about midway through the season, the cops arrest this guy who has confessed to the killings, but it turns out that he is only responsible for killing Horny Guy, and this lady who's not even worth mentioning. So that means there's a second killer who is responsible for all of the other murders, and right before our genius detective characters can figure this out, he kills them. So it turns out that the guy is Connor. He's the killer. You see, the point of all those flashbacks was actually to tell you that their mom put out a tweet after Horny Guy was killed that said, "I'm glad he's dead. He was a piece of shit. Hashtag you're dead, LOL." And she then proceeds to get canceled by the people who live in her building. Yes, this is still the plot, and they torment her and harass her to the point that she kills herself by setting herself on fire. Also, I want to mention this is like the 5th suicide in this show. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I feel like maybe that's just a bit much. Hey Netflix, maybe we should stop romanticizing suicide.
Suicide is badass.
So yeah, Connor and his sister have secretly been acting out all these murders and taking revenge on the people who drove their mom to suicide. But they aren't targeting Sadia until the very end, which means that not only has our main character not been in danger this entire show, but most of these flashbacks and love triangles have not done anything. They didn't matter at all. So yeah, season 3 is over, and it was a pretty messy and unsatisfying burrito. But the beauty of an anthology show is that as long as it can maintain a fan base, there's no reason that the next season can't be much better. I mean, look at American Horror Story. The fan base has only gotten bigger, and they haven't had a good season in like 100 years. The rest of the show have gone over to Shudder for season 4, which I think is a much more appropriate home for it, and I'd hope that the people over there can learn from the mistakes of season 3, and hopefully give us a much more satisfying slasher burrito than I could eat with 2 hands.